Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome back once again, or for the very first time, to the Farts and Crap Show, where today we've got part 29 of Stick Tips, the show where I talk about controllers and the various ways to improve their usage. First of all, I love this converter, and it's compatible with over 125 controllers, some of which are not listed. However, I have my preferred controllers, some of which used to be fully compatible with this thing. Also, I should mention, this is not a sponsored video, and all products featured in this video were purchased with my own funds. Alright, that out of the way, let's get into it. So, with this most recent update, actually updating the firmware was once again not super smooth, at least on Windows. I could not get the damn thing to actually accept the update, even though the update software indicated that it updated successfully. Every time it didn't. What eventually worked was closing down every program and disabling my antivirus temporarily, then running the updater as administrator. So, what did they actually change in this update? It has been another 6 months, actually, roughly, since the previous update. The thing came out last February. Didn't really get updated until September 2023. And now we have the next update, which just released on March 7th. And they are on version 1.2.1.0 for the standard version, and version 1.1.6.2 for Tournament Edition. Now, they have the tournament version of the firmware because if you're using this for like a fighting game tournament or something like that, obviously you can't use turbo and macro, stuff like that. So they have those features disabled. But going through the change log, let's just go through all the things here. So for the Wingman XE2, which I installed version 1.2.1.0 by the way, they added controller compatibility update added to support the Razer Kitsune, apparently PS5 mode, I guess, in different. And I looked up the controller, apparently it's like an all buttons kind of input thing. And I think it's already compatible in PS5, so I don't know why you would do this, like with the adapter, but select and left apparently is to map the left stick. Select and up is for the D-pad, and select and right is for the right stick. Okay? Maybe there's a use case for this, I don't know. I don't have a Razer Kitsune, but if you do, let me know in the comments why this would be helpful. Second thing, 8BitDo Ultimate Bluetooth controller, which Bluetooth and 2.4 GHz dongle modes apparently are compatible. The 8BitDo Neo Geo Cross SNK wireless controller, 2.4 dongle and wired use mode. Now that's pretty cool because that's with like the clicky stick, and I don't have one of these. I kind of wanted to pick one up, but now that I know it's actually compatible with this, I might pick one up. So, Sony Access controller, wired, used, and support profile switching. Again, already compatible. You can use this adapter on the Switch, so I'm guessing that's why it's compatible with the adapter, is because maybe if you want to use your Razer Kitsune or your Sony Access, I thought it was called the Accessibility controller, although maybe not, maybe they're talking about something else. Next one, the Exaprise USB stick Sanwa edition PS3. Not familiar with that one. Next one, the SN30 Pro Plus in Bluetooth mode, which we'll get to more on that here in a minute. Next, the SN30 Pro USB gamepad. Very strange inclusion because I think it was already on the list, but And next, the Zwiki Densha De Go controller. Press the capture button to switch the Densha De Go mode after connecting. Capture button? Okay. Not familiar with that one either. Second section, function update. So added manual mode switching and save. PS plus left is PS4 mode. PS and up is Nintendo Switch mode. PS and right is PS3 mode. PS and down is auto mode. For the Steam Deck, I guess? Also vibration switch setting. So PS or Xbox and square or X. Enable rumble motor. PS or Xbox and circle or B. Disable rumble motor. Okay, so you can usually do that on a system level. I'm not sure why it's a separate function. Support manual mode switching. That's kind of cool. So I guess if something's supposed to be compatible and it's not working, maybe if you're using it on PS5 and a PS4 game, like I'm going to be showing here in this video, maybe hold the PlayStation and left inputs? Although if it's not recognized and you're not getting any input, I don't see how that's going to help. But maybe. Anyway, if you want to stay up to date with the updates on Brook adapters, specifically for this one, that's the URL I'm showing in the top right, so definitely check that out. But compatibility. So I had a handful of controllers I wanted to try out with this one, and yeah, so the 8BitDo Pro 2 wired for Xbox. This actually unexpectedly stopped working. At first it was working perfectly, but it was kind of being treated like one of the other controllers, more on that here in a minute, where it would work great for a couple of minutes, but then randomly just disconnect. And it did this pretty consistently over the span of, I would say, 10 minutes. So I was really hoping to use this as my main controller with this adapter. But yeah, it disconnects a lot. It does work, but it does disconnect quite a bit. Next one, the 8BitDo Pro 2 Bluetooth, which they are on version 3.04. I listed the firmware for the controllers on each one of these just to clarify, because with 8BitDo controllers it's fairly easy to roll back the firmware if you want to. But just for the sake of clarity, I wanted to put that on there. So yeah, it works perfectly. Also fixed the disconnect issue, because before it did work, but the controller has a function where it automatically shuts off after 5 or 10 minutes of inactivity. And then once it did that, or if you manually powered off the controller by holding start for 5 seconds, it would not reconnect. You had to pair it again. So that's been fixed, which is really cool and almost makes me want to use this as my main controller, because oh wow, I love the transparent plastic Pro 2s, especially with like the thumbstick caps that they come with now. It definitely helps with usability, and sometimes they get a little gunky, but you can just like easily clean them up, like just like a little brush and some toothpaste or something does like wonders, and then dry them off and it gets their grippiness back. And yeah, they're better quality than a lot of the analog stick caps I've used in the past. So that is really cool. And this controller does have a manual switch for 4 different connect modes on the back, by the way. I used it in just the switch mode, and it was perfectly fine. Also, the star button acts as a dedicated share button now, which is pretty cool, because on some of the controllers with this I'm going to talk about, you have to hold, like, on a Switch controller, like minus and plus for a second to get it to do, like, capture, like screenshot, or, you know, open the share menu, I think is what they called it. And yeah, so that's pretty cool to have that as a dedicated input now. And yeah, you can set up custom profiles on this. It will, you can use the same custom profile that you can set up for the Switch using 8-bit Ultimate software. So really good. And I didn't test it in wired mode, but Bluetooth mode worked great. So 8-bit SN30 Pro Plus, this is the older version, basically. The Pro 2 is the successor for this one. But yeah, in Bluetooth mode as well, this was actually listed on there. They're on firmware version 6.01. And yeah, same situation. Works perfectly. Also fixed the disconnect issue. Just, I waited for it to disconnect, reconnected just fine. I did the manual disconnect, hold start for 5 seconds, reconnected just fine. It's not quite as snappy or feel as smooth as the Pro 2, but that's kind of to be expected considering it's a newer, improved version of the same controller, basically. Yeah. This one didn't work at first, which was a little confusing to me. The 8-bit SN30 Pro USB wired, which has been out for quite a while. I've made a couple of Stick Tips episodes on this. They're on version 1.05. I made a separate dedicated video about that because they did not update the firmware for like 2 years. But yeah, it works fine now. I'm not sure why it didn't connect the first time, but I tried it again because it was on the list and it connected and worked just fine. Don't know what the thing was, but yeah, this one is a little worse for wear. I would not use this as my primary PlayStation controller, partially because it doesn't have the back paddles / buttons. You know, there's a few things that are a bit more finicky about this controller. The shoulder button placement is a little cramped. So yeah, your mileage may vary. It's fine. Honestly, like, the D-pad is the main reason to use it. But speaking of D-pads, the OG, in my opinion, still one of the best D-pads ever made. Not specifically on this controller, but the Genesis style D-pad. But yeah, the 8-bit M30 2.4G, they mentioned the thing about using the dongles for, because with the Ultimate controller, like, it has the dongle for 2.4 gigahertz mode. So I was like, I wonder if it would work with the M30 2.4 gigahertz, because that also requires a dongle and doesn't work sometimes. But yeah, it works perfectly now, which is really cool. I just plugged the dongle into the adapter, connected the controller like usual, and it worked. The downside, obviously, here is you're not going to have a lot of inputs for most games, considering you don't have analog sticks. Also, the home button didn't work, and the star button did like nothing. So, and I couldn't, and start, which is usually like plus on the Switch, did not act as the options button. So yeah, no start button, no home button. So it's a little strange. You might find some uses for it, but it does work. Just, yeah, the input stuff is a little, might take some getting used to. And next up, this guy actually, they've had a bit of an on-again, off-again thing with the Brook Wingman adapters, like the XE and the XE2. Now it works perfectly. It had the same random disconnect issue I was having with the Pro 2 wired for Xbox earlier today in my testing, but seemingly that's fixed. Like, it's back to being fully functional, which it was with the XE, the first one, which I've had for quite some time, and we still use one of these attached to that all the time, mainly as like a wired remote, since we never have to charge it since it's a wired controller, so you don't have to worry about battery life or anything. But yeah, it's back to working fine. They recently did a kind of rebranding on these controllers calling them the PDP rematch for Switch, by the way, because the Faceoff Deluxe Plus was a Switch controller. Now they have the rematch for Switch and the rematch for Xbox. Officially licensed controllers for both of those platforms. But yeah, the Wingman XC2 works with a lot of Switch controllers, it works with a lot of Xbox controllers, so whenever one of these updates comes around, I like to test a bunch of, a handful of things that would probably be compatible, or have been compatible in the past with either this adapter or the previous version, the Brook Wingman XE. So, sadly, the 8BitDo Pro 2 wired version 1.03, which is what the last episode of Stick Tips was about entirely, I just fixed this thing up. And that's on version 1.03, but yeah, it's no longer compatible at all. Tried pulling it in a couple different times, with a USB extension and without, and it just would not recognize. Like, it would, some lights would come on and flash a little bit and do the usual indication thing, but it wouldn't stay solid and connect, and yeah, no inputs were recognized at all. So that's really sad, because on the previous version of the firmware for this adapter, this was like all I used for quite some time, because it's a great controller that feels great. And watch the previous Stick Tips episode if you want to know more about that, but it doesn't work at all now. Sad. Same with the 8BitDo Ultimate Wired, which is now in version 1.05. It just would not connect at all. Which I'm just like, ugh, dude. This is a good controller, like for a wired controller where you want like the back buttons, and it's got King Silver potentiometers, which are great. It's not like the new Hall effect ones, but there's only a small handful of 8BitDo controllers that are now with Hall effect sticks. So none of the wired controllers have them. Most of their wired controllers use Alps joysticks, which King Silvers are a step up from that. They're definitely better. But yeah, it's no longer compatible, so gonna be using this controller even less now, which, unless they do an update where they actually add the compatibility for some of these great controllers back, but, not counting on it, so. Anyway, it's the Brook Wingman XC2, the firmware version 1.2.1.0. So hopefully they'll eventually get like a version 1.3 maybe, or just like 2.0 that like is the final like fully fixed firmware and stuff. But anyhow, that's kind of it for like the compatibility, the update stuff. So let's get to my favorite part of any of these episodes, and that is the gameplay testing portion. So I've kind of just been, I need to turn this down. That should be okay. I've had the PDP Faceoff Deluxe Plus just attached and connected for this entire time I've been talking, and a little bit before I started recording. So almost 20 minutes, and it has not disconnected, which is great. And by randomly disconnect, I obviously don't mean physically. I mean, like, the inputs are working fine for a little bit, and then they don't. So this is another one of the ones where it's a Switch controller. Plus acts as your option input, minus is your touchpad. The capture button, sadly, does not work as the share button. If you want to pull up that menu, you have to hold minus and plus and then, you know, it'll do the thing. Or if you do it real quick, it'll do the screenshot. That's the setting I have, at least on PS5, so... But yeah, this is another one of those controllers where the analogs, it is the main reason. Like, there's a couple of reasons. Like, this was my main Souls controller for a long time. Like, I beat my no-death Dark Souls 2 run with this. I did my whole Dark Souls 3 series on this. I did a lot of Elden Ring runs with this. I did a lot of my Sekiro stuff with this. Like, it's been my primary controller for a lot of those because the analog stick heads feel great. Their design is top tier. I've talked about this actually at length in a previous Stick Tips episode. And the throw on the analog sticks is actually a little bit wider. So you have a little bit more control. And by that I mean they move. Like, they have a wider range of movement. So, in contrast, how like Joy-Cons like barely move a little bit, like they have a very small amount of throw, essentially fewer degrees of movement, physical movement on the actual joystick. So the other thing too is you can just map the back paddles, which feel super clicky and great and responsive, very tactile, to the stick clicks, which I love, because then that is your camera reset, it's also your lock on, and crouch, which I don't really care about. But plus, yeah, just the button quality feels great. The one thing I don't like about this controller is the D-pad. It's serviceable, and mine's certainly been used a lot, so maybe a fresh one would feel better. But yeah. The other thing that's really great about Brook adapters is they, at least, like the XE2 improved upon this, but the incredibly tiny amount of latency, like, especially with a wired controller, like, that's the main reason I would use this, partially because of its like muscle memory thing. Like, I've used this one so much, and the fact that it still held up incredibly well. You guys, and if you're familiar with PDP, like their line of controllers like this, you may have noticed in that picture, the image, the turquoise like D-pad and buttons and stuff. If you have multiples of these, like, you can just take the faceplate off, put it onto a different one. Like, you can easily pop off the analog stick caps, put on a different one, and like mix and match the controllers a little bit. So the faceplate is from an early, even before the Faceoff Deluxe Plus, the original Faceoff controllers. They still fit. Like, they had a Zelda Breath of the Wild tie-in one with like the Sheikah pattern, and that's what mine is. And I put it on this one because I was like, ooh, it's like all turquoise, which is the Tom Nook controller that they made to celebrate Animal Crossing. What's the new one? New Horizons or something? And I was like, hey, that'd be really cool with like the black and gold to give it that like Sheikah kind of look. And yeah, it does. Like, I love it. So yeah, we have a couple of different of these PDP Faceoff Deluxe Plus slash Faceoff slash Rematch Switch controllers, and that's one of my favorite things about it, being able to mix and match the different parts, because it feels great. And these controllers feel great, and they are extremely durable, which is a big reason why I love them, because a lot of these controllers, like, I've put them through hell, and they still work perfectly fine. Like, I don't think I've had drift on any of my PDP Faceoff Deluxe Pluses. That's how good they are. Like, anyway, plus you can often get them like discounted and stuff. Like, I think I paid $17 for this one, maybe 16 something. And they used to do that too, like especially on Amazon. They used to do that for the Wii U ones as well. Now those prices have skyrocketed because they are the Wii U GameCube style ones they made for that were officially licensed for what was Smash called on the Wii U? Wasn't it just called Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS? Like the least inspired name I think Nintendo has ever put on one of their like mainline games that's like super successful. Like, come on, guys. Anyway, that's gonna do it for today, guys. Thank you very much for being here. Greatly appreciated. I guess I should do in conclusion, right? I'm sad because the Pro 2 wired controller is no longer compatible, and the Pro 2 for Xbox just does not stay connected. And the Ultimate wired controller just is not compatible either. I'm happy the Pro 2 Bluetooth actually works perfectly now. I'm gonna test later to see if it'll work in wired mode just fine, but I'm already using that controller a lot on my Switch, so I don't want to overuse it in a way, and plus if I pair it to something else like the XE2, then every time I want to use it on my Switch, I'm gonna have to repair it, which not a big fan on that. And the motion control functionality would mostly be wasted using it on PlayStation, because I don't use motion control literally for any games, I don't think, on PlayStation. Not a lot anyway, but Tears of the Kingdom on the Switch, like, all the time. All the time. But, I mean, that's part of the Switch. It's just Nintendo prioritizes that kind of thing a lot. And yes, the XE2, it does work with motion controls. It's compatible with the controllers that support the function. And I haven't found any exceptions on that so far. But like I said earlier, the adapter is compatible with over 125 controllers. Like, I have a lot of controllers. I don't have that many, okay? Like, there's a lot of stuff I obviously was not going to test with this. But, yeah, the Neo Geo one, pretty interested to try that. And, if you guys want me to try that, maybe become a member on the channel here. No, but, yeah, that was basically it. The last thing I was going to say, I was glad they fixed the disconnect issue on the PDP Faceoff Deluxe Plus. That makes me happy about this. I do wish, like, and I'll hit them up later. I usually hit up Brook on Twitter /X or whatever. Just like, hey, your new firmware actually ruined the compatibility for these controllers. Please bring it back. That's all. Yeah, overall, good update. I'm liking what they fixed. And yeah. But anyway, Before we go, a very special thank you, and a couple of updates, but a very special thank you going out to the current Farts and Crap Show members, which at the time of recording is Novalis Draconis and Don Sabino. Thank you, guys, so much for choosing to support the show a bit more directly. Greatly helps out. We greatly appreciate it. If you want to be incredibly awesome like these amazing people and get in on all those membership benefits, check out the join button down below. Tier start at $3 a month. It's only 10 cents a day. It gets you into all the basic stuff, including getting to vote on the series that get made here on the channel via the members' choice polls. It's a thing we do once a month for a full 7 days, so literally 25% of the time we have one going. And we will have one coming up in March, sometime kind of soon-ish, maybe. It'll probably be the 3rd week of March, somewhere in there. But yeah. But if you guys would like to support the show in a different way, you know, you can always leave a super thanks on this video if you found it helpful or entertaining or any of those things. Or if you just want to, you know, be incredibly cool. Or you can always stop by for a live stream. We usually do 3 a week, Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, typically. And do a super chat. That's one way to, you know, support the show. But, yeah. If you guys want to stay up to date, though, on all the announcements here on the channel, either keep an eye on the community tab here. You can try the bell. I've heard it doesn't work for a lot of people, myself included. Or if you want to follow us on Twitter or join the Discord, links are down there in the description, also on the channel banner. But that is going to do it for today, folks. Thank you so much once again for being here. Greatly appreciated. Until next time, take care, and I hope you all have a beautiful day.